This brings me to the most important part of this talk. The slander directed at Imam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab by grave worshippers and by the mushrikeen and by the Sufiya and the Rafidah never harmed his da'wah. And by the will of Allah, it never will. A da'wah rooted in pure Tawheed won't be shaken by false accusations of its enemies. What needs to be mentioned and what calls for a sincere awakening is the need to clarify that the da'wah of Imam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab is completely distinct from the third Saudi state, the one that began in 1902 under the leadership of Abdul Aziz, the grandfather of Ibn Salman. For those who don't know, the Saudi state had three phases, where it was established at one point and collapsed at one point. The first Saudi state lasted for approximately 74 years. It was founded in 1744 through the blessed partnership between Muhammad ibn Saud and Imam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, and it collapsed around 1818. That was the original first state that was founded on Tawheed, on the direct hands of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. It was aimed at reviving pure Tawheed and combated shirk and bid'ah and deviation, and the da'wah became widespread during that time. The second Saudi state was also founded on Tawheed by Imam Turki ibn Abdullah in 1824, and it lasted for approximately 67 years. The third state began in 1902, and it was founded by the filthy Taghut Abdul Aziz ibn Abdul Rahman al Saud. It was founded on obedience to the British. The third Saudi state used and uses the da'wah of Imam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab and the true followers of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab whenever it serves their interests and helps them maintain their power. When they're done using the da'wah, they either distance themselves from it, as you see Ibn Salman doing today. They either distance themselves from it or from its followers, or they massacre them as Ibn Salman's grandfather did, or put them in prisons. Abdul Aziz ibn Abdul Rahman al Saud only succeeded in establishing the third Saudi state through the followers of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, who were called the Ikhwan man ata' Allah. He used the Ikhwan to gain control and establish the Saudi state. They believed they were spreading Tawheed, but in reality, they were misled by him. And they found out later on. The Ikhwan, the true followers of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, played the most significant role in securing military victories for Abdul Aziz ibn Abdul Rahman al Saud and establishing the third Saudi state. They were men who never feared death. They rushed toward death eagerly. The Ikhwan vigorously sought to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They vigorously sought to attain the Shahada. Kuffar before Muslims who documented history in this era, and they witnessed them in the battlefield, they said they threw themselves at death with determination and they advanced into the enemy's ranks. Every one of them was focused on destroying and killing his enemy. The corruption of Abdul Aziz became apparent to the Ikhwan after they had delivered him numerous victories. When they sought to continue their expansion, they want to spread La ilaha illallah. They wanted to move on to Iraq and Kuwait, which were under British occupation at that time. He opposed them. British don't let him. They also aspired to move towards Bilad al-Sham, which was under British and French control. They wanted to reclaim the keys of Bayt al-Maqdis. Their ultimate goal was to spread pure Tawheed across every inch of this earth and rule this globe by La ilaha illallah as it should be ruled. But Abdul Aziz's goal was to recline to the orders of the British. Abdul Aziz finally got the kingdom and throne that he wanted. And he got it on the blood and sacrifices of the Ikhwan. When Abdul Aziz at last secured the kingdom he had long pursued, built on the blood and sacrifices of the Ikhwan, and the Ikhwan finally realized he was not the leader they believed him to be, he turned against them and he massacred them, consistent with his betrayal. It was only with the British warplanes and their weapons and their intelligence, which actively supported him, that he was able to defeat the Ikhwan. The leaders of the Ikhwan, like Faisal al-Dwaish and Sultan al-Utaybi, and others were imprisoned or killed or tortured. Look at how Ibn Salman, without hesitation, openly underestimates the da'wah of Imam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. His interviews, his actions, his statements, his decisions all reflect a clear departure from that da'wah. In one of his interviews, he openly sought to diminish the legacy of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab by saying Ibn Abdul Wahhab is not Saudi Arabia. The filthy Taghut, that filthy Taghut, doesn't know, were it not for Imam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, by the will of Allah, of course, there would have not been a first or a second Saudi state. As for the third Saudi state that Ibn Salman is now enjoying, it exists only because his grandfather is a traitor who misled the Ikhwan. He used them to attain the victories and he massacred them. But that status he has will not endure for long. Insha'Allah. لا يغرنك تقلب الذين كفروا في البلاد متاع قليل ثم مأواهم جهنم وبئس المهاد. Ibn Salman, diminishing the status of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab, said he's just a scholar like many other scholars who lived during the first Saudi state. Ibn Salman has knowledge to classify and pass judgment on the prostitutes who he brings to desecrate Bilad al-Haramain. But neither he nor the ulama who flatter and polish his image have any right to judge the legacy and status of a man like Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Imam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab's da'wah shaped generations and laid the foundation for two states to be established on Tawheed. And the third state would have never existed if his grandpa did not fool the Ikhwan into thinking that it was founded on Tawheed and the da'wah of Imam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab was not an ordinary scholar. He was a scholar and he was an imam and he is a mujaddid, insha'Allah. He stands far above the ranks of all the compromised shuyukh who continue to polish Ibn Salman, no matter how white or black their beards are, no matter how many times they read or taught al-usul al-thalatha, or how many times they memorized it. Teaching and memorizing the nawaqid of Islam and al-usul al-thalatha and kitab al-tawheed without acting upon them is like a donkey carrying books, bearing knowledge without understanding or benefiting from it. When these ulama polish and praise and promote Ibn Salman, or the little clowns that do that, it's not just that they don't understand the true message of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab about Tawheed. It's also a reflection of their own moral decay. Ibn Salman isn't committing private sins behind closed doors or doing the live 30-minute stuff one of their heads was teaching them to be silent about. Ibn Salman is far worse than that. He openly introduces and promotes and safeguards unprecedented levels of fusuq and fujur and tabarruj, all at the very heart of our sacred holy lands and in public view. Ibn Salman is truly a reviver, as they call him. No doubt about that. He's a reviver of tarfih, of fusuq, of fujur, of filth. So when their shuyukh or their clowns extol Ibn Salman, it's not only a sign of their ignorance in the true manhaj of Ibn Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, but it's also an indication of their deeply flawed character. It reminds me of what's attributed to Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu an about the outward words exposing the true state of the heart. He said, ما أسر أحد سريرة إلا أظهرها الله عز وجل على صفحات وجهه وفلتات لسانه. No one conceals a secret in their heart except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals it in the expressions of their faces, in the slips of their tongue. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is exposing their hidden filth when they polish a filthy reviver of fusuq in the most sacred lands. And that's aside from the more serious matters and nullifiers of Islam. Matters that even their greatest shuyukh need some schooling on. Anyone who truly understands the essence of the da'wah of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab through his writings in historical context knows full well that if he were alive today, according to his manhaj, Ibn Salman and some who carry the last name of al-Shaykh, who are his descendants, would be among those Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab would round up in the execution square. If you want to discuss the changes they made into their curriculum on this matter, that would be a topic with no end. Where are the true followers of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab today? The ones who truly uphold his aqidah. They're either silenced or in prisons. Shaykh Hamoud al-Uqla, rahimahullah ta'ala, was in prison. And he lived his last years under restrictions. Many of his students alive today face the same fate. Shaykh Ali al-Khudair, who mastered and dedicated himself to the works of Imam Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab and Imams of this da'wah, alongside with Shaykh Nasir al-Fahd, those two are among the most knowledgeable Imams in the da'wah of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab in our time. And let me make it clear, they are the true representatives of his da'wah in this day and age. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free them in honor and keep them steadfast. When Shaykh Nasir al-Fahd challenged the authorities to a debate, he declared that he will not use but statements from the ulama of the da'wah of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. That alone speaks volumes. Of course, after the Quran and Sunnah. And it's not just that, but where is Shaykh Ahmad al-Khalidi and Walid al-Sinani and others who are silenced and in prisons? Many of them are not widely known to the public. When I was a teenager, I was obsessed with reading about the history of the Saudi states, especially the most recent one, and especially about what happened between Abdul Aziz and the Ikhwan. There was probably not a single well-known book, whether it's by Muslim historians or Orientalists, that I did not read at the time on this topic. Then when I went to study in Medina, I used to ask the senior scholars there, like Ibn Baz and those of his rank, what did the Ikhwan really do for them to be massacred? Where did they go wrong? What do you think about them? What do you label them as? That's another topic to be addressed at another time, inshaAllah. This was only supposed to be a 10-minute talk, but we went way beyond that. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi.